In this week's episode of Working with Work, I'm going to talk to you about the building blocks of life. Hello and welcome to this 39th episode of Working with Work. My name is Carl Pauline, and in this week's episode I want to talk to you about the building blocks of a successful life. Now, this is a little bit linked to last week's episode where we talked about simplicity, but this is something I've been thinking about over the last few months, which is related to life really is very simple. The problem we have as human beings is we seem to like complexity, and we just like to get our lives in a much more complex mess. But reality is life is very simple, and we live in a world today where nearly 100% of us, I would say certainly 70 to 80% of us have access to basic form of education. 200 years ago that was not the case. But today, most of us living on this planet, and certainly most of you guys watching this episode, have a basic level of education that we have been taught when we were very young. And that, to me, is the foundation of our lives. Now, we all effectively do mathematics, basic science, history, and maybe our own native language. Plus, if you're watching this episode, I'm pretty sure you must have learned English at some point. Well, those are the foundations of your life. It's just something that you need to stick into the ground to be able to build your life. But after that, well, what happens? Well, let me show you in this demonstration. Imagine you're building a building, a very tall building. And for all tall buildings, you can't start at the top. You can't build from the air down to the ground. You have to build from the ground up. And one of the things that we have to build first is the foundations. The foundations have to, depending on how tall the building is, the foundation is where we build we build first. We go down into the foundations. Now, to me, the foundations is your basic education. It's teaching you about basic science and language, as I mentioned, but it's also teaching you social skills. And unfortunately, our education systems around the world do not teach us how to manage our time or even manage our money, which is a bit crazy, really. But this is where your life journey really begins. I mean, obviously it begins when you're born, but the real learning about life begins with your basic education. But it doesn't stop. It never stops at that point. What happens is we have to grow. Now, what do you need to build a building? Well, you need a plan and you need goals. And as without those goals and without a vision of what you want to create, you're not going to create very much. So as we go up and we build this life, we are going to hit problems. There's going to be delays. We're not going to achieve things when we actually want to achieve them, because that's the way life works. But this is essentially how we build a tall building, but it's also how we build our lives into something really successful. So when you build it all together, as I've just shown you by the example with the building, what you really have is that center part after the education, the part that is at the bottom of the ground. That is the part where you are kind of focusing on building that life that you want to create. Now, if you are building a building, you always have architects' plans, and architects' plans today, even still 2017, are on paper. Now, I know that most of these plans are developed using a computer and CAD systems and various other complex software, but essentially it all starts with a plan, whether it's on paper or whether it's actually on a computer screen. It all starts with a plan. and eventually you get to the top. But if you think about it, these days we have the technology allows us to actually build 3D models of the building that we're trying to build, and that is essentially what we're doing with our lives. We have the ability to visualize the life that we want to create for ourselves. And I think it's really important for you guys out there to sit down and really be the architect of your own life. Build that plan so that you know what you want to achieve, and then you have this perfect vision of what it is. It's like the 3D model of that beautiful building that you want to create. Well, you want to create as close to that as you possibly can. And there's so many ways of doing this. First of all, I generally lay back on the sofa listening to some of my favorite music and just visualize where I want to see myself in 10 years or 20 years or 30 years time. But we can do more than that as well, of course. We can use applications like, or software or websites like Pinterest, where you can actually create your own vision board of the life that you want to create for yourself. Or if you don't like to use Pinterest, you could actually create I think I've talked about creating your own montage in Evernote, and just keeping all the pictures of the kind of house you want to live in 10 years or 20 years time, the kind of car you want to drive, the kind of work you want to do. You know, you can create so many things to really visualize that life, but all that foundation is there. You've done it, that schooling and that education. On top of that, now you need that plan. You need to go up, and you need to start building that life. And every day you're building another level, and eventually you will achieve that life. But those building blocks, those little bricks that you're putting down, those are the tasks that you're completing, the tasks associated with your goals. And that's what I really, really wanted to get through to you today, is that when you sit down and you plan out your life and you really have a clear vision of what you want to achieve with your life, you can go ahead and you can achieve it. But you need to be putting those bricks down every single day. It goes back to PACT, patience, action, consistency, and time. It does take time. You can't have everything tomorrow. You just got to build it brick by brick by brick, or in our case, task by task by task. And that is the way to build your own successful life, in the way that you want it, in the way that you visualize it. So go out there, guys, now, get a piece of paper, open up your computer, your tablet, or whatever you want to do, and make that plan for the life that you want to create, because it's not impossible. You can do it. So go out there and do it. I would take a whole weekend and just go out for a walk on my own and just really visualize what you want to achieve. When you've done that, you can sit down with a pen and piece of paper and really work out how you're going to achieve it. It's not impossible. You can do it. Guys, thank you very much for watching this episode. If you did like the episode, please click on the like button below. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please subscribe. Once again, I wish you all a very, very productive week.